The Toronto Blue Jays have made some moves. So how does this affect their lineup, and how does their lineup compare to the rest of the AL East?
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. As always, I'm Braden Iwasco. He's Carter First. You can find us on Twitter, Braden5 Iwasco, Carter First too, as well on Instagram and TikTok at Locked On Blue Jays as well. If you're new here to YouTube or you're listening anywhere else, head over to the YouTube page. We've sort of made it the hub so you can get your podcasts, your videos, your live streams, your shorts, sort of everything right there on the YouTube page. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. It really does help us out. It's free. You might as well do so. A lot to get into today. I sort of broke it all down in the opening there. We're going to talk the lineup. What does today's Blue Jays lineup look like? How does it compare to the rest of the AL East? Just before we get into all that, Carter, I did want to mention that we are going down to 3 episodes a week starting next week. Little Christmas holiday break. We'll still have 3 episodes. Anything crazy happens, we will go live. We will have a possibly extra episode there for you guys, depending on when things happen. So don't fret there. All of your news will still be covered. But yeah, we're taking a little bit of a break. If it's, month and a half, we'll go down to 3 a week, and then we'll be back ready and kicking for 2025. We'll be back 5 days a week as per usual. But, it's around the holidays. You're trying to spend some time with family, friends, etc. And that's still with work in 5 days. So we're cutting it back a little bit, but we'll be back. We'll be back to 5 days a week before you know it. So.
Yeah, the Jays get a big offseason. Obviously, we're not doing nearly as hard of work as the Blue Jays are doing, but from what we saw from the Jays season, it doesn't look like they're doing any sort of work, honestly. It didn't seem like they did a lot of things right for 2024. Just to preface this, 3 days a week, we're going to be Monday, Wednesday, Friday. That's when the episodes are going to be coming out. So you'll still get your, obviously, start of the week with the Mondays. Just won't have a Tuesday episode, won't have a Thursday episode. And like Braden said, that will be for the rest, for sure, of 2024 and then leak into 2025 as well. We're thinking sometime at the start of February, start or mid-February is when we would go back to the 5 times a week, sort of when the pitchers and catchers report for their meetings and just for their throwing sessions. But yeah, we've had some opportunity to kind of dive into obviously the trade and the spectacle. Then that gave us the opportunity to go over the free agent signings. Yimi Garcia obviously coming back. Then Nick Sandlin being a part of the trade as well. Some bullpen help, but we haven't really gone into how this leaves the lineup and what our projected lineup, Toronto Blue Jays projected lineup, what that looks like for 2025. And this is all from RotoChamp from what I have here. And overall, I mean, I knew this was going to be bad looking into it, but now that I did the dive and looked at some of the projected stats, some of the names on this list, I mean, you got to assume, again, that Ross Atkins is going to add to this batting order right now. But when we looked at 2024 and we looked at 2023, those seasons and how there was glaring needs, needing a power bat, needing a middle of the order bat to get some offense going, that hasn't been done. And it leaves me at least a little bit nervous to see what Ross Atkins will do or just what he won't do. And that's signing a big free agent that we've needed, honestly, the last 2 seasons.
Yeah, we've talked about the needs on this team, I think, nonstop throughout this offseason. I think we know where we stand and probably a lot of the fan base. We all know what needs to be done. And for some reason, Ross Atkins doesn't do what the rest of us think are obvious. And that's frustrating. Don't get me wrong. You need guys to want to play here. But at the end of the day, you got to make something happen. And it really hasn't been. I mean, we've talked about the trade. We've talked about, the Yimi Garcia signing, but it really hasn't been a huge change up from the last couple seasons and how those off seasons went. And I think this is a perfect time before, we dive into what else could happen and what else could be on the horizon for the Toronto Blue Jays. What does this lineup look as of right now? So, Carter, I think I'll send it over to you. Get into it. We'll break it down and just sort of thoughts and feelings, because, I mean, we look over this and it's pretty scary.
Yeah, especially when you compare it to just even other teams in the AL East. Chris Bassett went out at the end of last season and said you probably need 4 to 5 superstars on a baseball team if you want to make a deep run. You look at this batting order for the Blue Jays, you maybe have 2 superstars. And again, that's assuming there's a bounce back season from one of them. And you're looking at a lot of these other players. There are a lot of players that have not had long LB careers. They have not had any service time at the major leagues. And if they have had service time in the major leagues, it hasn't necessarily gone the best way, especially as of the last couple seasons. So just starting off with the 1, 2, 3 punch here, we've become very familiar with this, and obviously the back two are the ones you're not necessarily worried about. But George Springer, the Roto Champ has George Springer as being the leadoff guy for this upcoming season. It's either going to be him or it's going to be Andres Jimenez. Right now, I think if you're going to make a move like you did for a guy like Jimenez, and you saw how bad George Springer was at the end of last season, I think we would be favored to seeing just any sort of change of pace at the leadoff spot. But if you know John Schneider, that was one of the things that if you were going to get mad at John Schneider for 2024, that was the one thing you get mad at him for, is rolling back George Springer as the leadoff hitter. So they have him actually eclipsing the 22 home run mark. That would be one of 2 Blue Jays that would have did that last season, but George Springer obviously not getting the opportunity to do that just because of how bad he was at the plate. But they do have him eclipsing that 20 home run mark, him and Vladimir Guerrero Jr., the only 2 doing that as of right now. And that's why we have said so many times that the middle of the order power bat is a huge need. And they have Bo Bichette at number 2. If you get any sort of bounce back season from Bo Bichette, I think that's a shoe-in for your number 2. And then you have Vladimir Guerrero Jr. at number 3, same thing. I mean, you saw what he did in 2024. You've been seeing what he can do throughout his entire Blue Jays career. I don't think for the 2 and 3 spots you can necessarily get too mad, but if you have to roll back George Springer as your number 1 option, he's debatably the best option for that number 1 spot as things sit right now. It's going to be tough to get excited about a better offense coming to Toronto for next season.
Yeah, it really, I mean, I'm saddened by looking at this. The top spot to me, I think you can't roll back George Springer. I think we've seen enough. Everybody's seen enough. I know opening day, when that roster gets released and that lineup card gets released, and if George Springer's up there, I think there's going to be a lot of Toronto Blue Jays fans shaking their heads at that decision, especially when you have guys that, me and you think that Will Wagner will probably get some playing time. That's a guy that I would like to see at the top of the order. I think that would be a very good spot for the young guy. See what he can do there. If you're going to roll out the opening day roster, to me, that's where I want him. But again, as we continue here, we'll get into him. I'm sure.
Yeah, so you get those top 3 again. You've seen it before. If George Springer is leading off, nobody's really happy about it, but I don't think you can say it's unexpected just because of how things went for the 2024 season and just how things have went under the John Schneider era with him making the lineups and him just, really having a hard time getting George Springer out of that top spot in the lineup. These next 3 are where, there's just the most significant drop-off, literally, of all time. They have Alejandro Kirk in the 4 spot. Alejandro Kirk is projected to get 10 home runs from Roto Champ here. How many did he have last season? Did he even get to 10? Alejandro Kirk, not a power hitter, obviously. If you're watching Toronto Blue Jays games, this guy is a line drive singles type of guy. If you want him, if he's going to be in your lineup, you probably want him maybe at 6, maybe even at 7. I think at absolute best, you're pushing with 5, but I think a lot of people would not be comfortable with Alejandro Kirk at 5. And honestly, I would not be comfortable with having Alejandro Kirk at number 5. I don't think that is necessarily a good spot for a guy like Alejandro Kirk, who I'm just trying to pull up his home run numbers right now, had 5 home runs last season. So half of 10, had 5 home runs. This is right now who is leading off as your number 4 guy, your power hitter, your clean up bat, a guy that hit 5 home runs in the entire season of 2024. I think you can leave it at that. I think Alejandro Kirk is poised for a bounce back season, but if you're rolling him out as your number 4 hitter in your lineup, I don't know how you're supposed to get excited about this team when you can compare it to the Yankees. Obviously, again, right now, them missing out on a lot of their free agents coming back. You got to expect them to sign 3-4 guys in free agency. Their team will get better. You compare it to the Orioles, compare it even to the Red Sox now. I mean, the Jays actually might have the worst lineup in the AL East right now. And I don't even think that's a hot take whatsoever.
It's frightening. It's frightening to be a Blue Jays fan and see how far this team has fallen over the past bunch of seasons. It's upsetting. And Carter, to be honest with you, when we talk about, I'm going to bring up 3 guys right now just because this is where the conversation has led us. Will Wagner, George Springer, and Alejandro Kirk. I think if we're looking for a 4 hitter, I don't want George Springer at 1, but in my head, I think he's the only logical response for a 4-hole hitter right now. I think Will Wagner goes 1. Springer goes 4 just because he has the home run capability and the ability to drive the baseball. Yeah, it's still not what you want. You don't want him hitting 4 right now. But I think looking at this, I think he's the only option. I don't think Kirk is a 4-hole hitter. That's just not going to play in the MLB.
Well, and that's my issue with trading a guy like Spencer Horwitz. This all can look good in hindsight if Ross Atkins does make a multitude of moves. But when you look at just league averages from last season, league average OPS 711, the league average just batting average, for example, 253. You look at the Toronto Blue Jays, there was 2 players that played the full season for the Jays, and you can't even say Spencer Horwitz played the full season, I guess, technically. But we're on the Toronto Blue Jays for their full season of baseball that hit over that 711 clip. It was Spencer Horwitz, and it was Vladimir Guerrero Jr. So again, this isn't as much of Spencer Horwitz is the greatest player of all time because he was very good and he took some strides. It's just the Toronto Blue Jays literally have no hitting at all. They have no power. They have no guys with the ability to slug. They have no guys with the ability to hit doubles at a premium here. Because if you look at the next 5, you talk about Will Wagner going in your 1 spot. He's number 5 on Roto Champ. Will Wagner has played like 30 MLB games. Yeah. And you're going to have this guy either leading off or as your number 5 guy for 2025. I love Will Wagner. I think he can be a very good piece at the major league level. But again, when you're asking for a guy that has played about 30 major league games to lead off for your baseball club for an opening day game, that's a talk that we're even having right now, is absolutely wild to think that this team is supposed to compete for a World Series, compete for even a playoff spot when you're rolling out again, a guy that's played 30 MLB games as a debatable leadoff guy. That is a realistic scenario for your team in 2025.
I think it's the most realistic scenario, and that's how bad this is. This team needs to make moves, and Andres Gimenez isn't the move. It was okay. I think it's okay. I think the thought process maybe is there. Maybe the guy has a bounce back, and you utilize him, and maybe that's great. But we're rolling into 2025 on a maybe, on a hope and a prayer. I'm pretty terrifying for me, Carter. That's what I'm saying. As much as I love Will Wagner, and I think that with the lineup right now, that's the only logical move. That's terrifying. And yes, I love Will Wagner. I wish him all the best, and he kills it if he does get that 1 spot. But you're right. We're talking about an opening day roster. The guys walk onto the field, get their names called out, and he's standing there. Don't get me wrong, a guy that's been around ballparks all his life, but I mean, it's still your opening day. You're the leadoff hitter. You walk up to the plate, my hands would be shaking. Like, I don't know what you expect from the kid, but it's where we're at as Toronto Blue Jays fans. So I don't know. And looking at this, I don't think there's a better option for the 1. I don't think there's a better option for the 4 than George Springer. It's concerning, to say the absolute least.
See, for me, I'm taking Andres Gimenez over Will Wagner, especially opening day at the leadoff spot. You see that speed, you see the stolen base potential there. I think he's more of a traditional leadoff hitter than Will Wagner is right now. I think if Will Wagner plays into that leadoff hitting role, then for sure, I think if that is something you have to be open to, if he's going to take that next step again, if he can hit 280, get on base, and have great bat-to-ball skills, and he's going to be an effective leadoff hitter. I don't think I'm going to be too upset by that. I just think it's a lot of pressure to put on a guy that doesn't have a lot of service time at the MLB level. But I'm going to leave it at this. So you got your number 1 spot for next season. It's probably, as of right now, it's George Springer, Will Wagner, or Andres Gimenez. Who do you think it's going to be? Like, who are you the most comfortable, you personally, just rolling out there for that number 1 spot? And then give me a John Schneider answer that you have as well. So what you would do, and then what do you think John Schneider is going to do for the opening day of 2025, assuming that there's no other moves made for this scenario?
So just for the leadoff position here.
Yeah, just for leadoff.
For me personally, it's Will Wagner. I think I have faith in what he did in his short stint with this team. I think you see all the pieces there for a good ball player. I think if this is what we're rolling with, I think give the kid the benefit of the doubt. He's got a good eye at the dish as well, which is the difference between him and Andres Gimenez. He doesn't have the best eye of all time either. So I think if you're looking for an on-base guy, especially opening day, pitchers' first games as well, I think you look and hope, hey, maybe Will can actually know the zone and get on, at least just get on base. He doesn't got to hit home runs. Just get him up there, get somebody on base, let Vlad and Bo hopefully do the work. So for me, it's Will Wagner right now. I could be convinced with Gimenez. I think it's a 1-2. I don't think you can put George Springer there. I really don't. I've made that clear. I think as clear as anybody can make it. But if I'm John Schneider, knowing him, we're rolling out George Springer in that 1 hole. It's going to kill me and you. I don't know. Should we put a bet on it now? Will George Springer be hitting 1 for this Toronto Blue Jays team in 2025 to start the season? Probably. I don't know. That's just me, though.
Yeah, here, if I put my bet on it, it would be that Will Wagner is not going to lead off the season hitting in the opening spot. I don't see John Schneider doing that whatsoever. Can I see Will Wagner being good enough at that point to maybe be the leadoff hitter? I'm not going to toot Will Wagner's horn too much. I think, if anything, it's just there's just such a lack of a number one leadoff hitter on this team right now that it would be like kind of last man standing. Oh, it's Will Wagner. This is kind of all we have. Sure, throw him over there. But I think you're right. I think John Schneider is going to roll back the George Springer experience. So if I was a betting man, I would probably bet George Springer is going to be your leadoff hitter. If it's me personally, just because of the experience, just because of the MLB service time, I think what I would personally want to do is throwing Andres Gimenez out there. Again, you're right. Not really the on base that you love to see from a leadoff hitter in that traditional role. He's not going to get walked all the time to get on base for a guy like Bo Bichette, for a guy like Vladimir Guerrero Jr. But I think they see the steals. I think they see the upside in Andres Gimenez. You saw what George Springer did last season. I'm not comfortable rolling him back out. And just whether it's Ralvis Martinez, whether it's Will Wagner, whether it's Joey Loperfido, you can name any of these younger guys. They don't have the service time. I'm not putting that much pressure on them that early on. So I think that just sets your team up for failure. But again, it sets your team up for failure if you're honestly running out Andres Gimenez in the one spot. For me, again, unless you make 2 more seasons or signings this offseason, as we'll get into. But for me right now, if it's John Schneider making the order, which you again will be, obviously, it's George Springer. But I would not hate seeing Andres Gimenez, at least for a little stint, because it can't get worse than the George Springer experience that we had last season.
No, I don't care. Actually, I don't care. I don't care what it is as long as it's not George Springer. Put Vladdy in the leadoff spot for all I care. I just don't want to see George Springer back at that position.
That's a good spin zone. Vladdy's our best hitter. Give him the most at-bats. Like, it's simple. Take the thinking out of it. You want your best hitter to just hit the most. Let's have Vladimir Guerrero Jr. leading off for the Toronto Blue Jays in 2025. Maybe you can have a Kyle Schwarber type season, hit 40 home runs with just nobody on base in the leadoff spot.
Yeah, you know what? We'll talk some more about the lineup. We'll Carter will read off the rest of them. We'll get into sort of what this Jays team looks like in comparison right now to the rest of the AL East when we come back after this short break. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. They have their new curation, Game Time Picks. It makes it even easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, sort of whatever you can get your tickets to. It just makes it so much easier to use. They have their all-in pricing. Toggling this feature will show you the total upfront with no surprise fees at the checkout. I always say this all the time, how frustrated I get when I go to the checkout and it's 20, 30, 40 extra dollars on top of the tickets I'm already buying because there was surprise fees. I can't stand that. They have their seat views where you can get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. This is just a cool feature. I don't know if it's like the most useful thing of all time, but I like to go see where I'm sitting and know sort of what the part of the rink or part of the ballpark that I'm sitting in. I like it. They have the lowest price guaranteed, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Game Time, they have the Game Time ticket coverage as well, where your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. So, Carter, as we continue here to break down the lineup as it would be right now for 2025, I think we're both a little scared. I don't think we want to see this lineup. We've, complained and did our complaining already throughout the rest of throughout 2024 and the rest of this offseason. So we went through, I think it was 1 to 5. Let's continue on from there.
Yeah, I'm just going to kind of breeze through this because, long story short, this would be a terrifying lineup to roll out for 2025. You want to, do worse than that 74-win season the Toronto Blue Jays had. It's probably be a pretty quick way to do that. So I'm just going to, again, breeze through it. So for this scenario, they had George Springer 1, Bo Bichette 2, Vladdy 3, Kirk 4, Will Wagner 5. They have Andres Gimenez at the number 6 spot. Then they have Ernie Clement at 7. They have Nathan Lucas at number 8 and Joey Loperfido at number 9. You might be thinking, why isn't Dalton Varsho on this list? It's because for the opening day, it is projected that he will not be ready to go. He will have, be recovering from that shoulder surgery. I think it was the rotator cuff for Dalton Varsho, so he will not be ready to go for opening day 2025, but will be ready in the, might take 2 weeks, might take 3, might take a month, but he will be ready for the majority of the 2025 season. I mean, you're not excited about the top 3. You're not excited at all about the middle 3. And then you're even less excited about the bottom 3. That's pretty much overwhelmingly where we're at with this lineup. It's that there's no upside here. the floor is abysmal. All these players could be below league average hitters. If we go into their last season standings, last season isn't necessarily everything, but it could show you what we could be keen on seeing in 2025 if nothing has changed. I mean, just going over the power numbers, like Bo Bichette is third on the team in 19th for projected home runs. You have George Springer at 22. That might be a long shot. And then they have Vladdy at 34. The next highest they have is Jimenez at 15. I think that's a little bit of a high shot, like overshot for a guy like Andres Jimenez here as well. So it feels like we're just kind of running it back with the off seasons that we've similarly had in 2023 and then the 2022 offseason going into 2023 is that there's glaringly obvious needs. Maybe in 2022, that offseason for 2023, you're more focused on defense. Defense is not good in 2022. I get that. But when you see what means more, an offense, a guy that can hit a bunch of home runs, or a guy that, again, might miss a fly ball every third game, but which one's going to have more impact on your team throughout a 162-game season?
Yeah, I don't know how else. Like, I don't know why we're the ones having to answer this question. I think it's pretty obvious to everybody with eyes and that has watched baseball for more than about one game. You need guys to send the ball to the ballpark, Carter. And when I look at that lineup, I think it's terrifying because I think we've seen what Ernie Clement can do, and I'm okay with it. I'm okay with the player that Ernie Clement is. But when you look at those other guys, I mean, Joey Lopervito, I mean, who knows what that guy's going to bring? I can't remember who you said was 7 again.
It was Joey Lopervito at 8. Then it was Nathan Lucas, Joey Lopervito at 9, Nathan Lucas at 8. And then I have to pull up the 7 here. 7 was Ernie Clement.
Okay, so again, Nathan Lucas. I mean, again, a guy that I think we've saw good things out of, but not the youngest guy of all time. I don't necessarily know if he goes out and does that for a whole season. I actually can pretty much tell you right now he's not doing that for a whole season. So what's the other option here? Nothing. You got Davis Schneider somewhere. Hopefully he has a bounce back and can find his game, because maybe that helps at least with some power numbers. But I mean, you can't even bank on that because of the season he just had. So there's no options here. And I'm worried because I just said this to you today, Carter. We were sort of just, I think we were both making food. And I said it to you that if I could see them not doing a whole much else and us being terrified because no move happens. Then no move happens. Then we get closer to Christmas and still no moves happen. Then it's after Christmas and we're like, oh my goodness, this is the team we're going to run out for 2025. And that terrifies me. I don't know. Like I said, we've talked about Teoscar Hernandez. We've talked about Santander. We've talked about Jerks and Profar. I don't know, man. It seemed like Teo wanted to go back with the Dodgers. It seems like Anthony Santander's got multiple suitors. We talked about Corbin Burns. That doesn't seem like that's happening whatsoever. It just seems like plans are falling through. And if I'm the Blue Jays front office right now, I am absolutely scrambling to get something done because people are going to be calling for heads.
It just feels so similar to so many previous off seasons. So I kind of wanted to just compare how this offseason has gone so far compared to 2023 and the 2022 offseason. So in 2023, this was the year that, again, nothing really happened. You don't get a signing until you get IKF on December 29th. That feels a lot different than this year did, honestly, because you get 2 signings. You get Yimi Garcia. Obviously, you're in the Juan Soto stuff, so that everything was kind of delayed. Since the Juan Soto stuff has come out Sunday night, it's Thursday as we're recording this. It's been 4 days. So you've had 2 transactions with the Toronto Blue Jays. You've gotten 2 players for sure, 3 players, I guess you could say, with Nick Sandlin as well, that are probably going to have some sort of role on your team in 2025. So in that sense, when you're looking at it for the 2023 offseason, you're doing a little bit better than that because, again, you're not waiting until the end of December to make your first signing. But then we go to 2022. 2022 is the offseason that this kind of felt more similar to. So you kind of got this one off with a bang in November, the 16th, the Teoscar Hernandez trade. Again, you don't usually see that all the time, like just, one of those unique situations for that season. You saw, this the Ross Atkins thought process anyway. They saw that, again, you had a lot of hitting on the team. You had a lot of power. The defense, not necessarily where Ross Atkins wanted it to be. You try to move on. You try to get some pitching. You try to increase some bullpen help as well. You think you have a lot of power bats. So trading Teoscar Hernandez for Ross Atkins isn't necessarily the worst idea of all time. Then you signed Kevin Kiermaier December 14th. I think confirmed on December 15th. This in 2022 actually turns out to be a pretty good signing for 2023. Kevin Kiermaier, again, you need that defense. Still had a pretty good bat in that season, so that kind of worked out as well. You signed Chris Bassett on the 16th, and then you make that Dalton Varsho trade on December 23rd. So you kind of compare the transactions, just the number of them to the last couple of seasons. Obviously, 2022, you had a bunch going on. You had a bunch of moves flying off the wall, left, right, and center. Last season, not as strong of a free agent class, but you don't really make a big signing. You don't go and you don't make that crucial move, that impact move that's going to affect your team in 2024 and kind of put it over the edge. Your impact move with Justin Turner, we kind of all saw how that panned out. So overall, right now, when you look at the free agents off the board, you look at things that have happened. The Blue Jays aren't in a bad spot. There still is a bunch of moves that could be made in theory. There's Teoscar Hernandez, Santander, Jurickson Profar on the board from your corner outfield positions that I think can have a massive impact on your batting order for 2025. And then obviously there's still a bunch of bullpen arms. There's still a bunch of people in the pitching market. There's a bunch of prospects. There's a bunch of well-established guys. There's a bunch of veterans. There's a bunch of different ways and scenarios that Blue Jays could undertake for this offseason. For in that sense, we're not really in too different of a path right now. But when you look at that 2022 defense first mindset, you look at the 2023 defense first mindset, that's where we're starting to see a lot of similarities, where we're kind of going this defense first approach and putting the power bats and the offense to the corner. And we've seen how that kind of goes and plays out for the Toronto Blue Jays in 2023, 2024, and then maybe for 2025.
Yeah, that's the scary part. I mean, again, I know how much, me and you want transactions. We want stuff to happen. Looking back at 2022, I think what we don't want to see is transactions for transactions' sake. We don't want to see moves being made that are going to end up hurting this team. And I don't know if the Spencer Horwitz one is going to hurt this team. I don't know if it's going to be a great one. That's going to be something we look back at a couple of years and be like, oh, that really could have stung. I don't think they're making transactions for transaction's sake, because I think the Yimi Garcia signing was really good. I really like that one. This trade was sort of a whatever one for me. So now I'm looking for a impactful transaction. That's the next thing I'm really looking for here. I'm not looking for them to go and make two signings of guys that are going to play in AAA or whatever. I'm looking for the big, the meat of this offseason here. And we haven't gotten that yet. And I'm worried that maybe we won't. But we will see. And Carter, I know we talked about, you sort of brought up 2022, 2023. What I want to talk about when we come back after this little bit of a break here is really just seeing what the other teams have right now, comparing that to what the Blue Jays have, and sort of see where they fit in, because there are some teams that are hurting, some teams that are looking good. We'll talk about that right after this short break. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because right now new customers can bet $5, get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. I think that's the fun of it for me, is being able to just log in, as soon as the game gets going, and then, who's doing well? Okay, I'm going to throw money on him. I'm going to throw $5 on him, $10 on him. And the bonus bets really do help as well. Again, $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Those bonus bets might as well be free money. Lets you to bet some more and don't have to spend your own. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. So, Carter, we went over the Blue Jays lineup, what they would look like. Let's take a quick second. I'm just going to run down some of the other AL East teams here. So let's start with the Yankees, right? They lose Soto, they lose a bunch of guys, and this is what they're left with as of right now. Anthony Volpe at #1, Jazz Chisholm hitting 2, Aaron Judge 3, Austin Wells 4, Stanton 5, Jason Dominguez at 6, Ben Rice or DJ, or there's some movement here because you got to fit DJ LeMahieu in there as well. Ben Rice, Caleb Durbin, and Trent Grisham. Not the best looking lineup of all time. Like if I'm the Yankees, I'm not super thrilled with that. But I think in the same time, you see what Jazz Chisholm can do. I think you're going to look for the upside in him. Aaron Judge is going to be Aaron Judge. Giancarlo Stanton, hopefully he continues his playoff run and he can continue to do well. But Carter, it's looking better than the Blue Jays for the Yankees, but they're also not looking like a team that's going to go back-to-back World Series here.
See, the good thing about the Yankees, though, for their organization is that they do have the history of spending. They do have the history of going out and paying for all of these free agents. They're losing Gleyber Torres, they're losing Anthony Rizzo, John Birdie, they're losing obviously Juan Soto, who's the major one of this offseason. They are losing a ton of guys. Whereas the Toronto Blue Jays, they lost, I guess, technically Spencer Horwitz in a trade, but all of their guys were already gone at the deadline. And you look at what happened the last season, they didn't, and there was glaringly obvious needs. They didn't go and make those moves. The New York Yankees, they go and they will make those moves. I don't even know who the eighth guy you said in their lineup is. That's kind of where we're
Durbin.
at. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's not going to be in the opening day lineup for the Yankees. There's obviously there's no chance. But you look at a guy like Ernie Clement, might be an opening day guy for the Toronto Blue Jays. You're going to start with the Baltimore Orioles. Would he start with the New York Yankees? Would he start, again, this is a tough comparison, Los Angeles Dodgers. I love Ernie Clement, but no, he wouldn't on any of these teams. And that's kind of the problems that the Toronto Blue Jays have 5-6 hitters that could probably be bottom 3 hitters. When you look at a lot of these other teams, you look at their top 3, a lot better than the Toronto Blue Jays top 3. You look at their middle 3, a lot better than the Toronto Blue Jays middle 3. And when you look at the bottom 3 in their lineup, maybe the Toronto Blue Jays have some of these guys in depth, but they have so many guys that could be 7, 8, 9 hitters in their order and need more guys that can kind of fit into these 4, 5, 6 roles that have power, that hit for average, that do all these things right. But the Toronto Blue Jays don't really have the depth for that.
Yeah, just to go over another one, the Boston Red Sox here. Let's quickly go over their lineup. Duran, Rafi Devers, Tristan Casas, Trevor Story, Yoshida. There we go.
Yeah,
Willie Abreu, Connor Wong, David Hamilton, Rafaela, and then the bench. They also have Nick Sogard. They have Navarez. They have Gonzalez as well. So again, some guys there that they probably would like to move from, and are probably going to make some signings so that they don't have to play some of these guys. Again, but a team that could use some free agent help and is probably looking to do so. They've been in a lot of sweepstakes as it sort of has been, but they've gotten a couple of guys as well. Obviously, Garrett Crochet is now a Boston Red Sox, so that's a good move for them as well. And we'll have to wait and see sort of what they do. But in comparison to the Red Sox or the Blue Jays, Carter, how do you think they fit against them?
See, this one doesn't look as bad for the Jays, but this year feels in this offseason feels a lot different for the Boston Red Sox. They got rid of Mookie Betts. See, like they were letting every single big player they had walk. Xander Bogaerts, players like that. Didn't seem like they were taking anything real serious. But now, obviously, they trade Kyle Teal. They trade a bunch of their prospects for a guy like Garrett Crochet. It kind of signified a different change of direction for that organization. So obviously them being in on Juan Soto, the Jays were in on Juan Soto, how much value you can take from that. You kind of have to see the Red Sox actually put up and make some of these bigger signings. But when you got Jarren Duran, you have Rafael Devers. I'm not a big guy for Trevor Story, but Tristan Casas looks good as well. You have some of those guys. You could make the argument that the Red Sox right now, without making any more signings, would be in a better position than the Toronto Blue Jays right now. Had a better record last season, has a better farm system. Devers and Vladdy have comparable numbers. A lot more uncertainty, I think, for the Toronto Blue Jays rather than how you're looking at the Boston Red Sox system right now.
Okay, this is the one that's going to scare the lights out of you here. The Baltimore Orioles. They look scary on paper. It is terrifying. Gunnar Henderson, Adley Rutschman, Ryan O'Hearn, Tyler O'Neill, Colton Cowser, Ryan Mountcastle, Cedric Mullins, Jordan Westberg, and Jackson Holiday. And they have still guys on the bench. I mean, Gary Sanchez, Yamon Arias, not a great hitter, but can do some things at the plate. This team, to me, looks terrifying. There is not a ton of guys in that lineup that I would feel confident, that one of our guys could slide in. I don't know where Ernie Clement would fit into there. I think they're looking for the upside in Jackson Holiday. Hopefully he can kick off and have a great season. I know they've been building him up and, number one prospect, everything like that. We'll have to wait and see what happens with him. But this team just is scary.
Yeah, they have Hunter Kjerstad in the outfield as well. That's another guy that can come off the bench for them. So, when you compare to the Orioles here, it's never going to be a good comparison for the Jays. The Orioles are younger. You can say they probably have more talent within their lineup as well. And the Toronto Blue Jays do. Look at their pitching. You can probably say that their pitching is better than the Jays. When you look at anything the Orioles have, you can probably say it's a lot better than the Toronto Blue Jays. But that's the benchmark that you are having, and that's why you're in the AL East. Unfortunately, it's a tough division to be in, but you have some of the best competition in all of baseball. If you're going to compete in the AL East, you're probably going to compete pretty well against the AL West, the AL Central, and all of the NL teams as well. So, like the other team that we haven't gone over is the Rays. The Rays just not really that big of a market of a team, but they're always sneakily good. They're going to get a lot better next season. They're going to have a full year of Shane McClanahan. Drew Rasmussen will be back for a full year as well. The Rays will find a way, probably not to win the division, but to be a tough team for the Jays to play like they always are, especially when the Jays have to go back to the Trop this year. I guess luckily you could say, obviously a terrible situation, but luckily for the Jays, they won't have to go back to the Trop. They will have to play it. I think it was the New York Yankees. Isn't their Double-A facility is where the Tampa's playing out of this year, so that's going to be absolutely wild for them. But they're always, again, a team that the Toronto Blue Jays are competing with. Never an easy win when they're playing the Tampa Bay Rays. So, like when you compare it to the Red Sox, compare it to the Yankees, the Orioles, all teams that are going to be spending this offseason, again, you got to assume, you got to hope that the Jays are going to spend this offseason. But from what we've seen Ross Atkins do, for just all the moves you've seemingly been in and so close to landing, for us not to come away with anything, this definitely makes it a little bit tougher to swallow. It's a tough pill to swallow for the Toronto Blue Jays offense for 2025, unless they do make some of these moves and at least match the move of some of these big juggernauts in the AL East.
Yeah, they need to do something here. And again, I can't stress that enough. I think as fans, we all know that. Just going back on the Tampa Bay Rays thing, it's going to be interesting seeing Danny Jansen in a Rays uniform. I mean, you see him in a Red Sox, see him in a Rays, see him in the Blue Jays. He's traveling all over the AL East. So it should be interesting there. In saying that, Carter, I mean, we've gone over the lineup. We've given our thoughts. Let us know what you guys think. How does this lineup look for you? Who would you not want to see in this lineup? Who would you want to see in that number one hole? Me and Carter have given our opinions. We've said who John Schneider probably is putting there. Let us know what you guys think. This was a Friday episode. We are back next week. We are starting Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 3 days a week up until about when the pitchers and catchers report. We're just going to take some time. We're 5 days a week, pretty much the entire year. So this will be a little bit of a break for us. But anything that happens big, we'll go live. We'll have a podcast out the next day. So don't worry about that. We'll get you guys all the information on everything that happens. Carter, before we head out of here, anything to say before we head into the weekend?
Yeah, haven't missed a day, 5 days a week since February of last year. So we've been very consistent in the podcast grind, obviously. So yeah, like we taking this a little bit of time, especially around Christmas. Again, my birthday is early January. Definitely will be nice. We'll be sure to go live. There's a massive signing, Santander, Teoscar Hernandez, Jerkson Profar. Just trying to put that out into the world as much as I can, so it actually does happen. And the Blue Jays aren't an absolutely miserable baseball team to watch for 2025. I just want them to be, obviously, I want them to win a World Series, want them to win the AL East. But honestly, I just want them to compete. And I just want to play meaningful baseball. Kind of do a Ross Atkins quote here. Meaningful baseball in September is what I'm looking for. Don't want to repeat of last season where you're watching 3 months of baseball. That means absolutely nothing. And it all starts here in the offseason. So it's on Ross Atkins, as we've said, this entire offseason. They are in on a bunch of moves. But now we just got to pull the trigger and actually pull in one of these big free agents to help Vladimir Guerrero Jr., help Bo Bichette, and to help some of these prospects flourish for 2025. Other than that, just want to say thank you guys for watching, likes, comments, subscriptions, everything recently. All the support has been awesome to see. We have noticed that about 68% of you guys have not subscribed. So if you guys are coming back, watching the podcast, the videos, everything like that, we do appreciate it. And it keeps our videos at the top of your page as well. But just going into the weekend, we're going to have, I think, a pretty chill weekend for this podcast. Nice to have, obviously, one of those weekends once in a while with all the stuff that's come out recently, obviously the Christmas stuff. So just going to say, enjoy your guys' weekend and just relax a little bit before the Christmas festivities fully come through fruition here.
Yeah, I'm gonna end it off on this. The Carter first quote from back in the day. Have a fun weekend. Don't be idiots.